Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This is your host, Rising Oblivion. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about the Persona 5 ports, but not just the games themselves, but how much storage capacity do they have? What are the PC specs for this? How much space are you going to need on your hard drive for the different consoles and things it is going to? So let's talk a little bit about the PC port, more or less what we'll be talking about here, and the Switch port, and the file sizes and what you're going to need for the PS5 and other consoles. But let's just go ahead and get the Switch over with here. So moving on over to the Switch, we do know that it's going to be 12.5 gigabytes here, which is pretty interesting because this is like a third of how big the game is actually going to be for the other consoles and whatnot. But yes, it's only 12.5 gigabytes. You can have it docked and play it on screen. You can use the Joy-Cons. You can just have it as the actual just console sort of put together handheld mode, and it also has Nintendo Switch Pro support. So that's what we have there basically when it comes to the Switch. But let's move on over to the PC. So this is more what I wanted to talk about here in this video. We do have the minimum requirements and the recommended requirements to play Persona 5 Royal. As you know, PCs are kind of built differently, so there's a little bit of a range as to how good or bad this game might look. It really depends on your build, what your PC has, basically just how well is this game able to be supported by your PC. So let's go over that. I know a lot of you out there got computers and whatnot just to specifically play like Persona 4 Golden on Steam and whatnot. This is P5. It's going to be a little bit more than like P4, obviously, because it's like an HD game, I guess you could say. But Persona 5 isn't necessarily a hard game to run. It still was a game that was made on the PS3 and ported over the PS4 and whatnot, so we kind of need to keep that in mind when looking at this. It's not going to be too difficult. But let's move on over to basically what we have here exactly. We have certain parts, architectures, graphics, processors, and whatnot, and go over that a little bit. I took a little bit of, I guess you could say, like computer science, so I know a little bit about this stuff when it comes to specs. The reason why we have minimum requirements and recommended requirements, like I said, every PC is different, and more than likely Persona 5 Royal is going to have some settings, graphical settings, to where you can actually change how good the game is going to look, how many frames it's going to run at, and so on and so forth, so you can sort of put it in a sweet spot where you think it works the best for you in terms of smoothness, but also the performance of the game, how it looks. So minimum requirements, obviously Windows 10, architecture is x64, so we know that. This is the part that's important, the graphics card and the processor. So it's going to say here, it says GeForce GTX 650 Ti 2GB or AMD Radeon R7 360 2GB. The 2GB is what you see down below at the video memory. The 2GB there, you basically need 2GB of VRAM. That's what you need to be important looking for when it comes to your actual graphics card itself. Make sure you have 2GB of VRAM, and then it says here 2GB of memory, so that's going to be your RAM. So you need 2GB of RAM, 2GB of VRAM, at least an i7 processor, 2.5 GHz, that's what you need to look forward to. So when it comes to the processor, make sure your processor or your CPU has 3.5 GHz. Even says here 3.4 GHz works, so somewhere around there is good for your, specs here for coming, for the CPU. The graphics card, we need somewhere around 2 GB of VRAM. That's the important part there. And if we move on over to the recommended specs, they're not actually all that different. Basically still needing 2 GB of VRAM, 8 GB of memory. It's not too bad. And it says here that you can use your Xbox controller or gamepad. This is the Windows version, so this is not like the Steam page for this. This is the Windows page for this. So you need around 2 GB of video memory. Even on the recommended requirements, 8 GB of RAM and 3.5 on the processor, gigahertz of course. So you could check out a lot of that stuff on your PC. You can go to settings, check that sort of thing out. Most computers and stuff have this. If you have a laptop, then I would check that, but if you've gotten a modern computer within the last couple of years, you're probably double what this actually is, especially when it comes to memory and video memory. If you have a gaming PC, this game's going to run just fine. But if you have a laptop, like I said, and you're one of those people who are just trying to basically just play like P4 on there because you knew it was coming to PC and whatnot, this is something to look for. Find this within your system. Make sure you have this. Windows 10 seems to be the only thing here or higher, so Windows 11 will also work for this, but that is kind of what you have to go for. If you have Windows 7, I think it might work. I'm not 100% sure because when it comes to that, it's kind of hard to tell. Moving on over though, let's just look at the approximate size. So it says here the approximate size of the game is going to be 54.23 gigabytes. So this is significantly bigger than, like I said, the Switch version. The Switch version was about a third of the actual size. That is because the Switch is able to compress it. It also is only running 30 frames the entire time and is stuck at 720p. Unless you dock it, then it kind of goes up to 1080p, but it's sort of upscaled, so it doesn't look nearly as good. But this is the best version of the game basically you can get because it is less compression, the music probably sounds better, the game looks better, higher frame rates and whatnot. So the game is at 54 gigabytes, and the reason why is because all of those things there. To make it look better, you need a bigger file size. So when it comes to the console versions, the next gen versions, it's going to be this big as well, and when it comes to the PC version, it is also going to be this big. Now, there's something also to keep, in consideration here, that the ports and whatnot have all of the DLC. Not just the P5 DLC, but the Persona 5 Royal DLC as well. So that is not just the game itself. That is the game itself plus all of the DLC costumes, which probably aren't too much, but all the DLC fights and demons as well. Those are probably where a decent bulk of it come from. Fighting the P3 protagonist, P4 protagonist, the extra battles with like the twins and whatnot. All of those things there that are DLC, all of the demons, you have to have all of their models, whatnot, and animations and things as well. All of that stuff has to be included on there. From what I understand, they are able to actually fit all of this on a Nintendo Switch cartridge. So we shouldn't have to have a day one download. There's certain cartridge sizes when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. I think 16 gigabytes and then 32 gigabytes is sort of where it's at. And seeing as the game's only about 12.5, it should be able to fit perfectly on a 16 gigabyte cartridge. It actually has some leeway there, so they should be able to fit that on there unless they go for like an 8 gigabyte cartridge, but I don't even think that's the norm when it comes to the Nintendo Switch games. I'm pretty sure the 16 gigabyte is sort of the normal cartridge size when it comes to the Switch, so I don't think we should be worried about that. We probably will be just fine having the normal cartridge. Obviously, if you have a PS5, you have a 1 terabyte PS5, I don't think there's anything less than that, so you're gonna have a plenty amount of space there. It's gonna take about a tenth of your SSD though, which kind of sucks. I don't think there's any 500 gigabytes. Pretty sure they're all 1 terabyte, so you have that there. It is 55 gigabytes pretty much. Xbox should be fine. Your PC, obviously, people can, build PCs, add more, lose more space if needed. So you kind of know how much there's going to be there. The cartridge is just fine. Nothing's going to have to be downloaded if you download it that way. Or if you have a disc, obviously, you don't have to worry about having space. But I figured this video would be nice, seeing as how the game is going to be coming out here in a couple weeks. I figured I'd go ahead and sort of talk a little bit about how much space you might need, how much storage space you might have to have for the game, what to expect, if your computer can even run it, because I know a lot of people are sort of on the fence of whether or not they actually want to get this. Like I said, most PCs, especially modern PCs, and definitely modern PCs for specifically gaming, are going to run this game just fine. There really shouldn't be a worry. If you have a lower end laptop, that's when it's going to kind of be some worries there. I know just a lot of times when I stream and stuff, and especially when I stream P4, a lot of people had PCs that were just little laptops and whatnot, and I'm not 100% sure if their little laptop could possibly run something like P5R. It might be able to, but it might be sluggish, and might have been just better just to get it on the PS5 or something else like that. The only problem here, really, I think when it comes to hard drive space is the Switch, because the Switch doesn't have a lot of storage on board. If you get the game digitally, I recommend, if you're going to be getting this game digitally, do it anywhere except for maybe the Switch, unless you're a person out there who has a 128 gigabyte SD card, because like I said, it's going to take about 12.5 gigabytes. It is on the bigger end when it comes to how big Switch games are, but it just has a lot to it. It's a jrpg. It's a very long game, over 100-something hours worth, you know what I mean? So it's going to be a bigger game if you're going to be downloading it digitally. I recommend at least getting a physical version of it for your Switch. Anywhere else, digital is probably just fine. If you want to save a little bit of storage space on your next-gen consoles, because you have a lot of brand new games that are next-gen, not a bad idea to go physical as well either. Hopefully this helped you guys out on whether or not what version you want to pick. I think a lot of people are more confused on what to do because they already have the game on PS4. Do they get on PS5? Is it going to be much different? Should I have a handheld? Should I have it on my PC? Can my PC cover it and everything? Hopefully this video helped that out a little bit. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Like, comment, subscribe for more content as always. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching.